And we are live. You already know who it is. My name is Mike Kyle, aka the Fantasy Vulture. I have over a decade worth of fantasy football experience and have continuously competed for fantasy championships over the course of the past 6 seasons. Let's make it 7 in 2020. But enough of me. I'm here for you. On this episode of the FV Show, we are going to continue our Week 3 game recaps, breaking down every single Week 3 matchup, all through the lens of fantasy football. Up next, the San Francisco 49ers versus the New York Giants. If you are excited for this game recap, be sure to hit that like button down below like an open receiver downfield. Also smash that subscribe button, power running back style, so you never miss a video from me. Last but not least, you can follow me on all social media platforms at FFVulture. No highlights this week, just straight game recap action. So let's dive right in to the San Francisco 49ers versus the New York Giants. The Niners defeated the Giants. They kicked their ass by a final score of 36-9. The Niners moved to 2-1 while the Giants fall to 0-3. Nick Mullen, starting in place of the injured Jimmy Garoppolo, dealing with that high ankle sprain, played very, very well. This is something that I knew Nick Mullens was capable of doing. He showed it last time Garoppolo was out with that ACL injury. Mullens played pretty good back then as well. Mullens, 25 completions on 36 attempts, 343 yards, and a touchdown. Jerrick McKinnon, one of the hottest waiver wire pickups of the week, 14 carries, 3 receptions for 77 total yards, and a touchdown. He came through for you today with 15 fantasy points. But someone else who also came through for you today in this backfield was Jeff Wilson. 12 carries, 3 receptions, 69 total yards, and 2 touchdowns. Had to one-up Jerrick McKinnon in that way. Oh, God bless Kyle Shanahan and all of your running back goofiness. Brandon Aiyuk, the rookie wide receiver out of Arizona State, dealing with a hamstring injury throughout the first part of the season, comes back in Week 3, 5 receptions for 70 yards, 31 rushing yards as well, and a rushing touchdown. Aiyuk looked pretty good in this game with the limited passing options in San Francisco. Moving over to the Giants now. Daniel Jones, 17 completions, 32 attempts, 179 yards, 49 rushing yards, and 2 turnovers, 1 fumble, and 1 interception. Golden Tate, 7 targets, 5 receptions for 36 yards, and Darius Slayton, 3 receptions for 53 yards, and a fumble. Jerrick McKinnon left this game early with a rib injury. I believe it was in the 3rd quarter, and also the New York Giants running backs. Ew. We'll talk about them in just a moment. Whoops, wrong button there. So let's break this down just a little bit, right? First thing to note is this 49ers offense is going to just kind of keep moving, right? The thing that I really like about Kyle Shanahan as a coach is that no matter who is on the field, they always just manage to get the best out of whoever's on the offense, right? So whether you are playing Kendrick Bourne, Brandon Aiyuk, and Mo Sanu, right, as your wide receivers while Deebo Samuel and George Kittle are out. Bringing in Jordan Reed, who again had the potential to play well, unfortunately left the game with an ankle injury, and just having Jeff Wilson and Jerrick McKinnon as your guys out of the backfield when Tevin Coleman and Raheem Mostert are out, and also obviously Nick Mullens filling in for Jimmy Garoppolo, right? This offense just kept things moving, and that's super duper impressive given the state of the 49ers and all of their injury concerns. I don't really have a whole lot to add for them. I think Aiyuk is interesting, especially if he is going to continue to get 8 targets a game. Aiyuk is just a super talented yak monster. Very, very similar play style to Deebo Samuel, who should be back. I think it's next week he starts practicing again, so I'm really excited to see what he can do entering his 2nd season in the NFL. Jerrick McKinnon, even though he did get injured today, played pretty well. I expect him to be back next week for Week 4. And Jeff Wilson, if we are going to see Shanahan continue to use a stable of running backs, if Mostert misses significant time, or even Tevin Coleman, who is expected to miss even more time than Mostert, Jeff Wilson is a guy that has to be on your radar moving forward. I personally expect Raheem Mostert to play next week. But if he doesn't, and if we approach, that's the thing, you have to make these decisions now. So I would likely look towards adding Jeff Wilson off the waiver wire if I have room for him, just because we know that this 49ers offense is based around running the football, and Jeff Wilson is going to be a big part of that if this team is continuously losing running backs on their squad. Nick Mullens, there is no long-term outlook for him. I don't think. I do expect Jimmy G to be back next week. It sounded like Jimmy G was close to playing this week as well. So Nick Mullens, if he is active next week, who do they play? Let's take a look at this. They play Philadelphia. Philadelphia's defense is meh. Like, they're fine. They aren't awful by any means. Nick Mullens could be a good start next week if Jimmy G is inactive. Bye week start next week as well, so you may be in a spot where you need to substitute your starting quarterback. Maybe Nick Mullens is the guy for you, but even so, I'd probably look for other options, admittedly. Let's talk about the Giants, though, who looked absolutely awful without Saquon Barkley. I was saying this in my game preview, actually. Daniel Jones without Saquon Barkley is not good. Daniel Jones on the 3 games that Saquon missed last year, it was 14 points, 12 points, and 16. That's not going to get it done at the quarterback position. Daniel Jones today finished with, let's do some math here. He basically finished with 7.5 fantasy points. I have to adjust quarterback scoring in my head because the stats that I look at are for my league scoring system, and my league scoring for quarterbacks is slightly different than standard leagues. Going over to the finishing up with Daniel Jones, you can't play him. You cannot play him. It sucks. Because he was a guy that a lot of people like entering the season. But again, if there's no Barkley and Barkley is the piece that makes this offense move, there's no way in hell you can confidently start Daniel Jones in any matchup going forward. But a lot of people spent a ton of fab this week on Wayne Gallman, Dion Lewis, Devonta Freeman. And remember, I was saying I would rather have Mike Davis than all of them. And it looks like I was right. Wayne Gallman, 4 carries, 7 yards. Dion Lewis, 1 carry, 10 yards. Devonta Freeman, 5 carries, 10 yards. This was absolutely atrocious against a 49ers defense that is literally throwing out fans to play defense for them, right? With Nick Bosa being out with that ACL injury, with Richard Sherman still being on IR, Solomon Thomas being out with that ACL injury as well. Dee Ford was out. The list just kept growing, right? And this Giants offense could not do a fucking thing against them. I'm out on the Giants as currently stands, especially their running backs. I'm already looking to cut bait moving forward. Golden Tate, wide receiver, meh. 6.1 fantasy points and half point. Darius Slayton was awful, fumbled as well. I just don't know how you can start. And even Evan Ingram, 22 yards, 3 receptions for 3.7 fantasy points. How are you confident at all starting any Giants player moving forward? I can't be, especially as we are starting to hit bye week, weeks specifically. It can be appealing, like when you see a Golden Tate or a Darius Slayton on your waiver wire, right? But you can't do it. You can't do it. Why? Because you can't trust Daniel Jones and you can't trust what this team looks like right now without Saquon Barkley. It's just not a position that I'm willing to put myself in, knowing that I'm trying to scrap through early season wins, right? The entire point of the early part of fantasy specifically is to get out hot. You want to jump out to that 3-2, 4-1, 5-0 start, and really just put yourself in a good position down the stretch to make the playoffs. And the Giants are not going to be able to do that for you. So I'm already looking to cut bait with their running backs. I understand I probably just spent a ton of fab on them. I don't care. Why? Because as I just read through that list, one thing that you should have picked up on was that everybody was involved. Like I said, Wayne Gallman had 4 carries. Dion Lewis, 1 carry. Devonta Freeman, 5 carries. And then that's not even including the receiving work where each one pretty much had 3 targets. No thanks, I'm out. Is there anything of note that I still have here? I don't think so. I think this is pretty self-explanatory. This was a game that went a lot better for the 49ers than admittedly I was expecting to. In fact, I almost considered taking the Giants in my pick'em pool. Thank God I didn't. I took the Colts instead. God bless. But yeah, that's all I got. Again, this game was just one of those things where good things happen for one team and bad things happen for another who was missing their star player. So that's going to do it for my 49ers and New York Giants game recap. If you enjoyed, be sure to leave a like down below. You can also subscribe so that you never miss a video from me. I'm trying to do this for every single week 3 matchup. You can also follow me on all social media platforms at FFVulture. Once again, thank you so much for watching. Remember, people come and go, but fantasy championships are forever, and I will see you in the next video.